The Creative Psychotherapist is the official podcast of the Creative Clinicians Corner, a practice-building resource for creative psychotherapists. TCP Podcast is the cast for creative, expressive, and experiential-focused psychotherapists curious to learn how to design, build, and scale a thriving private practice. Your host, Reina Lombardi, interviews successful therapists about the tools and strategies they have used to develop creative-focused practices. They also talk about the products, services, and side hustles they have developed, using their knowledge and creativity to enhance their therapy practices, make a greater impact in their communities, and diversify their income streams. Welcome. Now here's your host, Reina Lombardi.
Hello, welcome to the Creative Psychotherapist Podcast. This is a Voices from the Expressive Therapies Summit version. It's episode 2 of 2025, and I'm welcoming back Mimi Savage, who's been on the show a couple of times now. This is going to be our third conversation, and we're going to be talking about her workshop that she is teaching at the upcoming Midwest Chicago-based summit in May. On May 3rd, she's going to be doing an all-day workshop on multicultural competency for clinicians, which will focus on her trademarked research methodology called personal public service announcement, which is an art-based approach. And I'm excited to learn a little bit more about that. And Mimi's also part of the faculty at the California Institute for Integral Studies. And we just recorded an episode with her and her two wonderful colleagues about a really incredible expressive arts coaching and community building master's program that they're launching in January 2026. And they're going to be doing a launch party here on the 23rd next week. So that's next Wednesday. So in a few days from now. And if that sounds interesting to you, definitely check out that episode, and there'll be a link to their launch party in the show notes there. But welcome back, Mimi. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. I so enjoy being a part of this podcast. So yeah, lots going on.
Yes, a lot going on. So let's start by talking about the research and where your personal public service announcement approach came out of. How did that evolve and develop?
So that came out of my doctoral research, which was working with adopted young women. Well, any children from foster care, but I needed to have that sample that would be dependable in my research. So it did, and also it was even more intriguing about the adopted child. And at first, for my pilot, it was boys through an organization here that supports adopted youth. And then it got more specific to adopted young women, because I noticed in the literature there was very little about young women, and the referencing was very generalized adoptees, which I find, it's problematic. So then it was adopted young women from foster care, and it turned out to be research working with latent adolescents. So they were 16, 17, and 18-year-olds, and it was narrative. So it's a small group, and I'm in the story, and not as if I didn't know, but I didn't realize the visceral connection I had to this population, because my mother in France during World War II was an abandoned child. Well, not necessarily. She was taken, like many children, sort of like the what is that train? It's not called the adoption train, but in America, where there was a train of children who were taken from homes, and basically, this is
oh my God.
And gone through America, where people would take them onto their farms or whatever for labor, or adopt them, hopefully for, a happy ending, but I don't know. But it wasn't unusual in war times, right? So we've got all these children in France, in Vichy, France, who were placed on farms for labor. And, she wished for that forever home or that connection, and found many siblings later. So anyway, that's a part of my history. It's inherited, right? And so as I'm doing this narrative inquiry, I'm like, oh, realizing parallel processing, figuring out also things about my life and intergenerational trauma. So working with children who are adopted, who are in foster care, it has to be foster care specifically because it is about systems. A lot of, what are the systems? How are the children being affected by these systems? It's 85% at least, I think, is sexualization, that's occurred. There's all of this trauma. Just being adopted or just being in foster care is trauma, right? The ACEs are just, let's just check off the ACEs,
Oh, yeah.
So what ways are therapeutic and non-invasive that we can get some data? And you're the art therapist, it's through art. I think you're right. It's Thompson. There's a book, I want to say, P. Thompson, Doing Visual Research with Children and Young People, Routledge. Routledge. And I remember just a lot of resources, but coming up with, because of the acting background that I've had, and I used to do commercials back in the day, I'm like, a commercial, about my identity. And also this became an idea because of the folks I was working with, the adoption support agency, and I'll get to this. I'm giving you how does this come about? This way of working, one way of working. It's not all of it. The personal public service announcement is because, they have days where they're supposed to go and seek out their forever family. And it's really uncomfortable. You are actually, kind of on display and talking to maybe a potential family that will adopt you, a couple. And it's just, and there's material around this if you Google it. And I thought, wow, what if that were not the case? What if there was a wonderful way to tell you who I am, the way I want to tell you who I am, in the way that I want to tell you who I am? Because nobody asks young people from foster care that ever.
Right.
This is not like, let me hear about you and tell me all about you and do it the way you want to. I imagine skateboarding and surfing and saying, this is who I am. I love to dance or whatever. So I thought, a commercial that would capture who I am. And then I thought, and that was my pilot. I did very guerrilla filmmaking with these boys and had a great time and got a lot of data. And one of the major results of that data was fun.
Sounds incredibly fun. I'm sure they had fun.
They had fun, and a lot of truth came through that. And then I thought, but selling yourself in a world where it just seems so provocative in a strange way that I have to sell myself to someone, right? Even though I can see how that could be tweaked in a way. And I thought, tweaked in a way. What about a public service announcement? In my language. And so a script was formed and an app was used that doesn't exist anymore. So it's called Morpho. I'm finding another app for the folks that are going to be at the summit, because I want them to go ahead and try it. And masks were made, and those masks were animated. So anonymity in the research was just a given, easy peasy, and their voices in a 30-second or 60-second public service announcement came through. And so analyzing that, I won't go into detail, but ways of doing that with iPoem, it's called the iPoem. It's Gillian. She actually has devised a way of figuring out how to work with young women who've been marginalized. And so really winnowing away and getting to the essence of what is being said, almost in a musical way, like, just it's in a poetic way, I want to say. capturing what's the essence of once you transcribe everything of what this person is really saying. So that was one way of culling, of getting data, was having everyone, inviting them in the way that they wanted to create a personal public service announcement, which takes care of intersectionality. I mean, self-identity is at the core
Mhm.
of inquiry and of this research, right? Who am I? And, how I want to say what I want to say finally about who I am and my identity, especially through adolescence. Oh my goodness,
Oh
right?
yeah. It's so
Individ-
important.
right? So but you miss out on that because a couple of things are very real for the adopted child or for the child in foster care who may be in foster care, is that, through in adolescence, you're going through two aspects at least of individuation. It's like you're breaking away
Mhm.
from your biological family and you're breaking away from your adoptive family, right? I mean, that's what
Yeah.
individuation is and becoming. So it's not typical for everyone,
No.
right? And to really do the work embracing that that's what's happening here, and allowing a therapeutic way of getting data. Why not? I mean, narrative inquiry, you're in the story anyway. It's not quantitative and it's not phenomenological. It's what happens when this occurs, right? um,
Mm.
what is happening for you. So it was an exciting way of working, and I'm wondering, since then, um, about how can it be used for others in an that either want to use it in a therapeutic way or want to use the personal public service announcement also to actualize part of their research. um, Best way to learn this and through at the expo will be by doing it, and also the steps that occur. There are steps towards how do you get to the PPSA, and actually a lot of them are art therapeutic and um, with role play. I've trained narrative, so narrow drama. Pam Dunn coined that phrase. I've taken it a little further with this kind of research, as to what I want to do with that narrative therapy,
Mhm.
but narrative inquiry, along with narrative therapeutic ways of working with people in in a participatory way. This is participatory.
Mm.
Uh,
Right. Participatory research.
mhm.
I love that. It sounds like one, it's so respectful of the client and their experience and allowing them to tell it in their own way and their own design and perspective.
Mm.
And so oftentimes I think, as a teenager, our autonomy is restricted in many ways. But as a teenager in a foster care system, it
Yeah.
is extremely limited. I know I've worked with a lot of kids that have, in their teenage years, ended up living in the group home because they can't find an adoptive family. And that comes with a whole other host of challenges in terms of, individuation and where do I fit in? And like, how is this all going to pan out? Am I going to be able to afford to take care of myself when I get out of here? They're like living with these major adult problems during a time where they should be focusing on having fun and learning who they are and like cultivating their own like unique aspects of themselves. But due to the hierarchy of
Yeah.
needs,
Right.
that doesn't take priority.
Absolutely. I was just thinking when you said that, about identity and becoming, right? When I was
Mhm.
working with the boys in the pilot, there were so many wonderful things that went wrong. I'm so grateful so that I could, get this, for instance, learn from a colleague, about this app, for instance, where I'm out of the way. I'm not editing it. I'm not adding the music. It was great in the pilot to have them do a little film that was like their commercial, right? But I remember in one of the groups, and it wasn't a group, and I did it differently for the doctoral work, it was one-on-one. And then there was a group encounter where we all watched on a big screen their PPSAs with their family members and the social workers, and learned even more about that in a celebration, right? But going back to the pilot, one boy said in the group about names, and I wouldn't have thought of this. He says, yeah, I was given a name and they changed it, and I'm not a dog. My name is my name. It was given to me. And it was like, boom, this is all about me, my identity. It's just making me feel emotional. It's like,
yes,
this is the essence. Whatever you do, Mimi, in the way that you get data, you must respect this individual, this child who has an identity, who was given one, who comes from somewhere, who has history from somewhere. It just began the day that he was brought to someone's home, which is beautiful, by the way. But to respect how do you want to be identified? Who are you? I'm asking.
Right.
So that's the through line for the whole, for the way of doing the work. It could have been even more. I'll say I wrote about it in a chapter book. What is it called? It's got a long title. It's really does. It's participatory methodologies to elevate children's voice and agency from information age publishing. Beautiful ways of working with children. I actually love the book. But I thought, I could have done there's member checking and they're integrated in the work. And I thought I would have liked to have I wish I had been able to just give them the materials and with some guideposts, just, just more, I got addicted to this feeling of like, I want you to do even more on your own. And you figure out what, you analyze the data. That part I would have liked, but the situation being what it is and limited time, etc. There was a lot that was learned, but and I wouldn't have been able to do that then. I am interested though in that research, longitudinal, to go back.
Oh, that would be fascinating.
Right?
Yeah.
And do that personal public service announcement now that they're in their mid-20s, late 20s. Yeah. Wouldn't that be something?
Definitely. Yeah, that would be very cool. So you're going to be teaching about that at the summit in this all-day workshop, but you're also, the title is Multicultural Competency for Clinicians. That's the title of
I think that's the category. I have it that it's called Restorative Research. Restoring. I'm on another panel, so it might have been, that's the panel on Sunday. On Saturday, it's called Restorative Research, Restoring Methods for Self-Identity with Personal Public Service Announcements. Restorative Research.
Well, then I pulled up the wrong one.
That's all right. I'll be there. You'll find me on Saturday. And then on Sunday, I'm on a panel because there is a BIPOC focused inaugural portion of the expo, the summit, and that's on a panel that is about, I think, the multicultural viewpoints, and it's going to cover practice and pedagogy and stuff like that. But on Saturday it's Restorative Research. I quite like the title because I think it's like restoring, because that's not the problem. The problem is the problem, and reauthoring ourselves. But the methods of that for self-identity. So while we're doing the research, we are actually doing something that's not harming and also not taking, and restoring. So you actually maybe, this moves the juices around about like, who am I? And so there's aspect to it, using this particular method. So I'll go through the steps until how we get there, and hopefully do justice on that all day event. Yeah.
That's exciting. Okay. Well, I'm glad that we had that conversation so that I can go back and get the link for that session and have that in the show notes too. So I have both. So you'll be participating in part of the multicultural panel, sharing about that, also sharing about this research approach, but then you're going to be doing a whole session on the restoring.
Yeah, on Saturday. Absolutely. That's it. Yeah.
That's exciting.
Yeah, it is. And I'll be there Friday for hopefully doing workshops myself. And all in all of this is, if I could segue, is in enriching. And I'm excited about sharing about a book deal that I got with Routledge.
Yes, let's talk about that.
Yeah. So that I'm not certain yet how the PPSA will be integrated in a chapter that I'm writing. But I'm editing a book. There are 16 authors, and the title, I know. And I'm not.
You have your work cut out for you. 16.
I'm going on a sabbatical starting in June. So that's what I'll be doing. That is what I'll be doing. And so the title of the book, it's interesting how the book came about. It's an inaugural type of book, which I find shocking. But what is wonderful to even mention here on the Creative Psychotherapist official podcast is that it embraces all of the creative arts therapies, and it will embracing Black creative arts therapists. It's a book think of Incada, it's all under one umbrella, and this has never been done before. Don't you find that shocking? I find it,
I do. I think that earlier when we were talking, we had been using the word like how we work in silos sometimes. And of course, I went to Leslie, which embraces all of the expressive arts modalities. And that's part of the curriculum that we learn, no matter what your specialty may be. But for a lot of other programs, they are in such isolation. There might be a music therapy program, there might be an art therapy program or a drama therapy program, but they don't communicate to one another. They're like operating in their own, corners of the world, and they're not talking to one another and collaborating with one another. And I think that's what makes the Expressive Therapy Summit such a special event.
Yes.
In that it does pull all of that. You don't have to belong to a particular membership organization. These are people that are coming from all over the world with expertise and passion for the work that they do using all of the creative and expressive arts modalities.
Absolutely. That's what I loved about, and how I got involved in Los Angeles, because, when we were doing it pre-pandemic, right?
Yeah.
Person. So I was part of, inviting drama therapists, for instance, because there was really there was a lack of representation in the drama therapy world. And at the time, I was the Western region rep, and then I was education chair. I have to say that this year they're going to Louisiana in October, and they are inviting, and I hope they're successful, inviting other, professionals and other modalities to this. They want people to apply to present. So I hope. Oh,
that's wonderful.
Because I really do believe, let's. It's what is it? Mahatma Gandhi said, no culture can survive if it's exclusive, or something to that effect.
Right.
And in our professions, right? This is a dream. So yes, and I'm all about the expo. And this book came about because I had actually been reviewing as a peer reviewer for a colleague for her book, and she said, I really want your eyes on this, and Routledge, is inviting you. And I'm like, okay. And I was very thorough. I was so thorough that they said, well, what would you like to write about? And I said, well, I got 6 ideas. Here they are. And I presented those. It took me some time. And they're like, we like that one. And I'm like, let's talk about that. This wonderful editor said, and so we honed in on that. It took me a while to come up with a proposal, to come up with it and be really precise about the need for it. Why now? Who would be in it, and who would want to read it, And so I was thorough, and they had nothing to say about the proposal except for the title. And it turned out very alliterated. Like, it's called The Future of Black Creative Arts Therapists, Practice, Pedagogy, and Preservation. So that's a lot of P's.
I like that, though.
Yeah, we came up with that finally. We nudged and pushed and did, and finally that was, but I was really proud of first of all, it was a dream to do this, to be the person that brings a bunch of folks together who are groundbreaking, talented, but also, a bunch of Black folks together. I'm a hybrid, but I identify as a Black woman. And we have those voices as well, just people who, reside in different parts of the world. So the Black diaspora, and what does that look like? And why is this important? It's important because, actually, harkening back to the conversation we had about coaching with my colleagues, is that our literature is limited.
Yeah.
Of a forward thinking, or I don't even like that. I can't believe I said that, but someone who's integrating literature from all cultures or many cultures, and also, cultures. And I mean by that, all identities, not just race, right? In the way we learn.
I agree with that. I think, and it's so inherent in the field of psychology that, like, there's an absence there. It's very dominated by the white male voice.
Right.
And I remember taking the history of psychology as an undergrad and having to read Guthrie's Even the Rat Was White. And it's still so relevant today. And when he was trying to get that published,
right,
people were against it. They did not want him to publish that piece of literature. And I think we're still in that, where a lot of
now.
Yeah. So it seems very poignant that you're creating this work at this time to bring voice to so many different voices across the fields.
Right. Reina, it's interesting you say that, because it took me, I was granted a writing sabbatical through CIIS, and I went out there, Mount Shasta. It was snowing, and I was in this little cabin yurt thing, and I was like, what is taking you so long to write this proposal? Because it was, but I actually got the skeleton of it. I got the outline of it, and then I kept filling it in. It took me longer than, I was accepted to make the proposal, and then you have to make the proposal, right? But I do think what you're saying is timing is everything. It's relevant. Right now we're in a time, and I'm not going to go into depth with that, but where, certain books are banned, and, how to bring about information to those people who are the helpers, right? Who are learning to be the helpers and to do no harm, so that they can be really helping in the space, in the room, where they're going to be maybe not identifying with those they're helping, like not, ethnically or social economically or whatever it is. So why not also take advantage of the information that those people who have figured out ways of working with groups of people and ways of teaching, and whether you're white, Black, however you identify, everyone needs to know this. Everyone needs this information. We all need this information. I teach a predominance of, it's San Francisco, so it's a pretty varied group, but it's predominantly white, right? We have, what is it, 4% of therapists in the United States are Black. So that's it.
It's wild.
Maybe it's maybe a little higher, but I'm confusing it also with academics, PhDs, for instance.
Oh, sure.
3% being women. So it's so small. It's so
Mhm.
small. And yet our populations are a predominance of people of color,
Yeah.
marginalized people, people who identify, not as in the dominant culture. So this is not balanced.
No, it's not. It's not. And I think that, you know, by and large, most of us don't do a very good job at learning about the culture of the people that we're working with in order to serve them in a way where they feel seen, heard, accepted, and are able to trust in the provider or the system,
Right.
where the system that the because the system comes with its own challenges and cultural issues.
Absolutely. It's one of the reasons why that there's three sections to the book, the lived experiences, and that could be the practitioner, the educator. The other is methodologies, because there's just beautiful work that's being done that's unique. I'd like to think that the PPSA is part of a little teeny part of some other things that I've just been reading about through these authors that are like, oh my goodness. And then the third part is the future. And so in that section, students who have newly graduated out of programs have a voice. Two of the chapters are actually, I have the rough drafts of them already, are written by students who are talking about pedagogy or, Black psychology, of which I knew nothing about. I don't know. And how do we integrate that with expressive arts? I went to Leslie too, and I find that I'm glad I did, because I was exposed to the creative arts therapies and
Yeah.
expressive arts, that multimodal, intermodal. It fit.
Mhm.
I'm narrative trained, so I'll use everything. Art. I use mostly art therapy for diagnostics, to be honest. It just came easy, and in the environments that I was in, it was very accessible to work that way,
Sure.
especially with children.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
So the book has those sections in it, and is, I think, the goal was to represent as many voices and, yeah, as possible, but definitely the young, the newbie, the new person who's going into this field, and how were they taught, what was comfortable or uncomfortable, what would they,
Mhm.
what needs improving. Yeah, as well as people from the Caribbean who use the practice in a different way, or may
Mm.
needs for their practice when they go back to the islands, but they've been taught in American systems.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, I think that's true for a number of folks from around the world where they'll come to this country to train because they don't really have programming where
No.
they're at, but then they're being trained from this very like Eurocentric model and then going back and bringing it into their culture. And there has to be some dissonance there and a lot of extra work on their part of like, how do I reframe all of this
Absolutely.
so it integrates into our culture and the people will be able to receive it.
Yeah, that's it. That is it. And the aim for the book is definitely, it's, perhaps it'll be seen more as a textbook. It's also for the layperson to learn about, creative arts therapies. Um, yeah, and also it's an argument about how it's, by the way, Black creative arts therapists they've been around. It's also, it's part of it, creativity is, it's it's the way of the culture. There is always
Yeah.
whatever, unless there's some religious affiliation that it doesn't allow you to, but it's part of self-expression. So it's nothing new,
Mhm.
but also to be aware of the groundbreaking, the research, and the ways of working, and even ways, again, to educate in pedagogy how these things do exist. These people exist.
Mhm.
People are doing things that are it's not, oh my gosh, this is a new thing. It's something that's been around, and will
Mhm.
continue to be around. People developing practices and ways of working, because honestly, because they've had to. I mean,
Mhm.
you just described, how do I go back into a population or into a milieu with a group of people that are not in any way identified in the literature and how I was taught, and make
Right.
adjustments,
Absolutely.
right? And it works also if you're that white practitioner or Asian, whatever, whoever you are, and you're not of the dominant culture that you're helping, you know.
Mhm.
So yeah, all of that, all of that. So I'm excited about this book, and what it will do, what it'll provide. Um, yeah. And I am a little surprised in some ways, but that's my, I guess, I don't know why. Why am I surprised that it doesn't exist yet? This is a first. So it's a long time coming, like the song. It, it needs
I
to it needs to arrive.
I think that's one of the things, like on one hand we can look at it and go, gosh, this is kind of problematic that it's taken this long
Right.
for this to come to fruit
Yeah.
here. And yet, on the other hand, I think that it really speaks to our field in general, and that it is still so young. And there's so much room
Right.
for things to be published, for people to write about things that haven't been talked about yet. There's just so much room for growth. And that's kind of exciting.
It is exciting. I told you I had those 6 ideas. I got more, right? Right. I mean, that when you're in the midst of practice on one of those days and you've met your certain amount of clients, and you're like, what we really need here? You have those thought bubbles that come, and you're like, gosh, what this clinic could improve. Or, I did work in group homes, and I worked in residential treatment. Wherever there was a gathering of children, I've worked, you know,
Same.
where there was neurodivergence or whatever, and all acute populations, nothing typical. Maybe in my private practice for a while, anxiety, but still, you have those moments, you're like, gosh, I wish there was more on this. I wish there were resources on this. And so I like to invite my students in the master's program where I teach, well, counseling psychology. They're getting their MFTs or LPCCs or both. I'm inviting you that when you have that moment to get a notepad, and also to document everything that you're doing. If you're facilitating in a certain way that is a little, because you're making these
Unique.
adjustments that's unique, and then write.
Mhm.
You don't need a PhD to write.
No.
Like,
Yeah.
it's almost obligatory when you have a PhD, I think. So it's kind of like, what are you doing with this thing? If you're going to spend this many years getting that thing, you better share the knowledge. But you don't need that. Do it, because so many people right now are doing amazing things that we are like, what did you do? Oh my gosh, that's brilliant. When I invite students to co-teach with me, or to, I'm like, well, so tell me about that exercise you're doing. What are you doing? And it's new, wonderful. I'm like, oh my gosh, you got to share this, and you got to write about it.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah, writing, I think, can be very intimidating for some folks. And if that is the case, I think that there's plenty of seasoned professionals that have strong writing skills that if you ask them, they would
Oh,
take you under your wing and help you out so that you could write something that could be published in a journal or a proposal for a book about whatever it is that you're working on. Because I've heard many people say that they're willing to do that and
yeah,
help with editing.
I've done it. I did it with two women from Spain who were getting their doctoral work, and they wanted to get their drama therapy credential in America as well, because it doesn't exist in Spain, and they're at the University. So
Mm.
brilliant, wonderful humans. And they were doing, for their drama therapy, for a course I was teaching just in, the foundations of drama therapy. And they went on this several sites, and I'm like, oh, this is really good. It was with Parkinson's, a population of Parkinson's and their families. And
Oh,
they're using
cool.
drama therapy through the teachings I was offering, and this was all online, by the way, so it can be done. Like we were, because I met them here in Los Angeles for a bit, but then they pursued the drama therapy credentialing, and it was great. And there's no literature on drama therapy, and Parkinson's. There is with dance movement and music, and so we were encouraged. And so I was the third, and then this I said, I'll do this with you if that's what you want. And then they were like, we need this. So I was the third originally. I became the second because the other author went into maternity leave and only could put in hours. But it took a couple of years of back and forthing. But that article was published by the Drama Therapy Journal, and Intellect Publications, and it's the only one of its kind. I don't know if anyone else has written about that, but ways of working, in a case study type. It's a mixed study though, actually, because there's some quantitative info in there, but that happened. And I love that. I get excited to hear about that. And that's an opportunity that you can create, because you're right. A lot of people are willing,
Right. For people that are intimidated by it or have never done it before, it can feel overwhelming to do that. And I think depending upon what program people matriculate from, a lot of programs don't have you write a thesis anymore. And that really prepares you to be able to submit to a journal.
Right.
And so if you don't have that experience, just even thinking about it can feel like, oh, I don't know, that's a little too much for me. I don't know if I can handle it. So knowing that there are other folks that if you reached out to them, they would be willing to support you and mentor you and take you under their wing and help you get that process going, I think is important, because we need to be sharing the knowledge.
How else are we going to keep growing in this field? You're right. The original fathers of psychology were using their own family members as, research material. Boys, predominance of boys. It's where's our voice, your voice, my voice, there's, oh my goodness. So we have to, this is an ongoing living experience and experiment, what we're doing here. It's ongoing.
Right. And the field is growing and changing and evolving. Think about it. If we were having this conversation in 2019,
right?
In 2019, we may not be talking about facilitating an experience completely virtually, having a complete master's program that you could attend from anywhere in the world, because COVID-19 hadn't happened. And that really transformed and forced people in our field that had been hesitant to adopt the technology and the video telehealth model to adopt it, because they didn't have a choice. And then now it's like, okay, it's not going anywhere. Now people are seeing the value here. And so we're growing and changing. And even I think research in how do we facilitate experientially through the video platform, how can we expand what we're doing experientially through telehealth is a really interesting area of focus. I know we're deviating from our general topic, but
there's two things we're not actually, I don't think so, because I'm hoping that part, someone's going to mention that in the book, but two things I was thinking of, like I am taking, I don't know how I'm taking this course with all the things, but I'm taking in it's the Teledrama International. I don't know if you know Danielle Simmons. Maybe you've had her.
Yes.
So I'm taking an organizational coaching course to enlighten and enliven my world of learning more about ways of using psychodrama in coaching, right? It's very experiential. They have all of these apps and wonderful things through Zoom that they can use. So I think, yes, and we can do that. It doesn't have to just be talking heads. We can be moving. And I do that when I
Mhm.
in the expressive therapies, the Masters of Counseling Psychology at CIIS with expressive therapies. So yes, and it doesn't end. Here's to me a really important part we didn't think about pre 2019, because I know drama therapists are like, no, it has to be in person. We have to do everything here. The energy, it's true. Let's not compare. It is
I
just
understand. I feel the same way. Like you can't change the energy, but you know, if you're talking with your hands, we're being very emphatic in our
right.
like we're still exchanging energy. It's different, but
It's different. And here's the beautiful part. This is the rainbow or the golden, the bucket or whatever. It's like how much more in equitable is we are reaching people who may never have been able to reach
right.
this kind of teaching or this kind of therapy. Maybe even affordability is around this, but we are now more accessible to more people. And ain't that grand,
That's awesome.
right? Because before,
Yes.
like, oh, well, I can't drive to so and so, and I don't have the time, and I also maybe also financially it's costly. I don't have a car. I live in another country. What there are all of these
Right.
parts that make it difficult to not have therapy. Some of them may seem like excuses. Others are very real reasons why people don't have access to the helpers. Mr. Rogers,
Mhm.
like, seek out the helpers. Well, this puts it at a more at ease way, and to seek out the helpers. Heck, you just here, okay,
Yeah.
boom. I mean, that's beautiful.
I agree, and I feel like just in terms of building community, yes, I'm very entrenched in my physical community,
Right.
but I'm also just as entrenched in my virtual community. And the colleagues that I have that are like part of my support system are working all over the country, not
Right.
near me at all, but we're still very connected and have regular meetups and support one another and share resources with one another. It can be a both and, like you were saying.
I agree. Yes, yes, and yes, a both and podcasts,
Yeah.
part of what you've built for that community alignment and aligning, is the podcast, and you've been doing this. So I kudos to you for you thinking ahead. Like you that's advanced compared to some of us in certain generations. It's like, what podcast, what?
No,
And
thank you. I honestly, it was like one of the same thing that you were talking about. I was looking for a podcast that spoke to art therapy, like something in the creative arts therapies or expressive arts therapies. And I found like an episode here and then it never went anywhere, and an episode there and it never went anywhere. And I was like, well, this is a missing component. Can I do that? Can I fill that gap? And didn't know anything about podcasting, but I was like, I'm going to teach, I'm going to take a class in it. I'm going to
right.
learn how to do it. And I did. And it's been lovely. And I've been able to meet so many amazing therapists from all over the world doing this. And I get the benefit of learning from every guest that I have on the show because you're sharing your knowledge with me and I get to ask you questions I want to ask.
Right. Right.
It's awesome. It's a win-win.
It is a win-win. I just when you were saying that, you said I took a class and learned about it. And I was just thinking, going back to the PPSA, I forgot to mention, because I was thinking elevating the child or the young person. Most of them know how to work an iPad or a phone. And once you have that app in that in the process of doing this experiment, they're the ones teaching you. They're the ones that are higher on that. They're sitting in the director's seat, and it's great for rapport. It's great for the relational aspect of doing research with young people, rather than being on top and being the one in the, the white jacket or at the desk or at the podium.
It shifts the power dynamic, right?
Completely. And that is what's rich. And I just heard you say, yeah, I went and learned about it. And I thought, yeah, it's amazing. I am in the position of learning every time I do something like this with someone of that age who is younger than me, and going, oh, yeah. Oh, I got the app. This is what we do. I'm like, oh, okay, show me more. Right. It just triggered that thought of, and also when you were saying filling the gap, that's where and we're coming full circle here. Filling the gap is the book. Filling the gap, finding a way to fill the gap. How can I fill the gap? And also just even thinking in foster care and the knowledge around it. Yes, there's the literature, but thinking about your podcast and how much can be shared about a certain population just by listening. My husband, who is a voiceover actor, but he's also a sound editor and sound director for television and stuff, has a colleague, another actress, Jane Amelia Larson, and she has a podcast called Bonus Babies, and it's all about the foster care system. It's beautifully produced, like yours is, and it's all about stories.
Oh my gosh, I love
Whoever you are, whether you are the foster child or the person working, the social worker, the therapist, the systems, management organizer, so many rich stories. And I finally, after, I think it was, I don't know if it was our first or second season, I spoke, and it was also revelatory for me to come kind of like not full circle, but come back to the story of how and I touched upon it a little bit here, but how I ended up in that environment. It was no accident, working with children who the predominant come from, systemized ways of existence. So yeah, everything you just said touched upon little crystals. Like, I was just listening to
synthesizing, all coming together.
Right, absolutely. Well, it's so nice to speak to you about all of these things again, as usual.
Yes, and same. And I think that, like, folks that attend this Midwest Summit, you have 2 amazing days planned. For sure, they're going to learn a ton in the panel on multicultural understanding and how we need to be thinking about these things and what we can do. And if they take the restorative research session about restoring, I think learning your participatory research model, that's going to be so much fun. And it also seems like even if they're not utilizing it for research, it's still an awesome intervention that they can bring back to utilize with their clients and enrich the day-to-day work that they're doing.
Absolutely. And I feel as if it's a workshopping. I would like to do this several times because I am curious as to ways of using it that are not research, oriented. Like, where is it for literacy? Is it for, self-esteem? Is it for, children in who are immigrant children, or adults who are. I am interested in all of these places that this exercise can be used toward, in a therapeutic way.
I feel like this could be a really incredible intervention for folks that are in the LGBTQIA community, non-binary community, gender non-conforming community, where they already are at this place of redefining their identity according to their own felt sense of it in a world that is not very accepting. And I just think that this would be a really cool intervention in that group of adolescents. It just would be so empowering.
I see it. I completely see it. And I'm even thinking of students and a TA that I have who's trans. I'm like, let's do it. Let's do it. Yeah, I absolutely. So it's exciting. It's very exciting. And then again, it's that energy of ongoing, right?
Mhm.
That
Yeah.
I'm
The creative spark.
absolutely right.
Yeah.
Well, whew,
Mm.
adventure.
Well, I appreciate you taking so much time out of your afternoon to meet with me today, Mimi, and I can't wait until your book is available. You'll have to email me and let me know when it's available for pre-order so we
Okay.
can update that in the show notes and on our website for the episode of the show.
Francis Taylor and Rutledge, and everything goes in April 1st, 2026. So after that, it's a lot of. So I will definitely let you know. I'll give you all that info.
Yeah, so we can update it because this will be ongoing, the podcast exists once it's out there. And then for folks that are interested in attending the Midwest Summit, it's going to be in Chicago at, I want to say, like the Hilton.
The Hilton, I don't know. I booked it. I don't.
That's okay.
The
So
plane will take me there.
So it is in Chicago. If you head over to the Expressive Therapy Summit website, which is just simply expressivetherapysummit.com, you'll see all the options. They have a bunch of different events going on. Click on the Midwest Summit, and there you'll be able to find where the hotel will be. And you can check out Mimi's sessions and all the other sessions that are going to be available, which I'm sure are going to be incredible. They always are. And I know every time I've ever attended a summit, I always leave walking away refreshed and refueled myself. There's something that's very nourishing about the summit, but also I leave with tangible knowledge that I can come back and put into my practice. And that's what makes it so special.
Absolutely. I don't know if the early bird sign up is still happening, but it's, don't hesitate. Go and sign up. The more the merrier, right?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you too. And I am going to roll us out with our outro music.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Creative Psychotherapist. If you like what you heard, please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. For show notes, downloads, and additional resources, head over to the website at www.creativeclinicianscorner.com.
Okay.
Bye, everybody.